Now we arrive at the third presentation and the last one today, a contemporary architect and an interesting architect. Just a second, let me start the presentation. Brad Cloepfil, a strange, somehow family name, Cloepfil, Brad Cloepfil. He started his firm, Allied Works, and I found out about them rather late, but they did some good work. I only show a few projects by them. And again, he is the main force there. He is the founder of this firm. He is the designer. He is, everything in the, well, I shouldn't say so, of course. It's a collective work. Anyway, this is the man. And I would say an intense man, and who draws very well manually. And when I say very well, I mean artistically. He was born on February 8th, I think in 1956. Here he is, North American. I think, I am not sure, I think he came from, and maybe still living and working in Oregon. Okay, so let's look at some of their works. Allied Works, this is the name of his firm, of his office. And we begin with an important work by them, the National Music Center of Canada in Calgary. Here it is. Discover the icons of music in Canada. I think that, yes, it's an image of Leonard Cohen, who died a few years ago. This is not a bad building, and it's quite creative, and it has richness and variety. He won the competition for this building, and Bruce Danziger, whom I mentioned some minutes ago, the structural engineer from Los Angeles, he told me that he and some architects also participated in this competition, but they got a second prize. So the work was not built, but this one by Allied Works won, and it was built, and you are looking at it right now. So we see here, we see space, right? There is, yes, it's an interesting, intricate, geometrically engaging space, but there is also the surface. The surface itself has individuality and, its own seductiveness. It's not just space, but the space is interesting as well. And the play with concave forms and convex forms and so on. But not everything is so spectacular, like maybe if those musical instruments were used, it would have been, at least in terms of sound, more enticing. People gathered before the pandemic, and they will gather again after the pandemic, and probably they gather there even with the pandemic. So this is the building, is here in Calgary, in Canada, by Allied Works, and some models and drawings preliminary, showing actually an interesting process. And process is an important part of the making of buildings by Allied Works, and by this architect who was born on the 8th of February. I like his drawings with charcoal, with they made me think a little bit of Louis Kahn, although they have their own very specific personality, these drawings. But they are good drawings artistically speaking as well. And then, these studies that are related to the process of coming into being of the building. I particularly like these models with eroded erosions of these bodies that well, I wish he built something like this. It was not be like this, but I find them very, very interesting, and it shows clearly that, you know, he wouldn't have a problem to answer the question if architecture is an art or not. But this has to be said. There is a difference between art and architecture. Yes, there is. But at its best, architecture is an art. It becomes an art. And what are we looking at here? It's clearly an architect who indulges, if I am to use this word, in sculptural studies or works. I mean, any artist, I mean, if you look at these works, you would say they are art, and they are. But they are studies for a project which became a building which was used and is used and will be used. And now we see we have here one thing, and then we have here another thing. Here is the measuring phase of the coming into being of a building after the, you know, the first intuitions, which are rather artistic, and all kinds of studies for the building. And now we see images during construction, and you know, on the left is digital representation, then the building in the process of being built, and then the finalized. I like more actually what I see on the left, particularly in the middle, because it's a work in progress, and it has a complexity, a richness, which here is kind of disappearing behind these perfectly, you know, finished or finalized surfaces. Anyway, that's my opinion, but I am subjective because I don't like, it's true, I don't like very smooth surfaces. I like to see some of the viscerality of the process of becoming, as I call it. But it is an interesting building and rather, you know, surprising considering the context. I mean, look at this house here, which is incorporated kind of in, you know, in the whole scheme. You see echoes of those erosions, as I call them, in the models of studying the building. But somehow I like them more in the study than here. Here they are too smooth and too, I don't know, a little bit decorative for my taste. It's still an interesting building. Allied Works. I particularly like this image. It's just an image, but a moment in, I use the word related to time, not to space. It's a moment in, you know, in the life of this building. Now, the National Veterans Memorial and Museum, also built by him in the United States, again, I would say that there are very noble and interesting, artistically speaking, attempts here, but somehow the perfection of the execution, in my opinion, misses a little bit, you know, something that, for example, the landscape around here has. But again, this is my subjectivity. I think there is a problem when the execution is too perfect and you know, the surface is too smooth. They become a little bit commercial, if I am to call it or call them so. But we do see here a word which matters, that is educate. Educate, it's important. Yes, and Erasmus of Rotterdam, in my opinion, was entirely correct when he said education is the most important thing in a nation's life. Unfortunately, so many people don't think so. They think that, questing for money is what matters, or, things like this. Of course, there are three essential verbs: to be, to have, and to do. And you cannot have one without having the other two. You cannot be without having and doing. You cannot do without having and being. And the third one, in the permutation between the three verbs, I think they were mentioned by Jean-Paul Sartre, but there were other people who thought of this. So to be, to do, and to have, or to be, to have, and to do, or to do and to have and to be. You need all of them, all the three essential verbs. You cannot do without having and being. And it seems you cannot be without doing and having, and so on. And you cannot have without being and doing. Unfortunately, many people in the obsession with having, they forget to be, and they forget even to do, or they do only for production in order to consume and to get things. It's somehow of the three verbs, to do, to have, and to be became the least important somehow. The most important is today to have. The more, the better. Now, what I do or what we do in order to have, maybe it's not so important, as long as we can get money to buy other things and have and have and have again. But where is being? It receded. I think in our times, being kind of receded. It's still there somehow, because yes, in order to do and to have, you have to be as well, but it's not that being in a rich way. It's more like subsistence than life. In the end, it's about, do I live in order to eat, or I eat in order to live? And I think being means to live to eat in order to live, and not the other way around. This building, though, by Allied Works, it was well conceived, and I like these spiralings. Other architects work like this, Ingels among them. I like the purity and the inspiration of the initial sketches. Even the model, you see, the model has a roughness, a rawness, which is lost in the built work. Here there is a spontaneity, that, and the raw material that was used, and the erosions, if I can call them so, at the edge of this paper. And there is something here that was lost in the built work. And the built work is perfectly built, but maybe too perfectly. The drawing shows an artistic sensibility that, even the hesitations, and I like his drawings. And cryptical, rather, studies, they are interesting as well, which shows clearly architecture is a creative field. You discover things, you innovate, it's literally about giving birth. Now, the Duchess County residence main house. This is an opulent private residence. I think it's a good building. It's yes, it's not conceived using the spiral as its generating force. It's rectangular, but I wouldn't dismiss it as a boring building. It's a good building. Now the images of the inside, in my opinion, are a little bit too, I don't know how to describe them, official or too. But it's also some kind of I don't know if it's used as a museum. It has this function of, it's clearly that the owner of this building or the owners of this building have a collection, an art collection, and are very interested in art. Um, the landscape is beautiful. I don't know if Allied Works had a saying in the landscape as well. It's splendid and it's mysterious. The building is fine, it's kind of like I don't know why it's called a house. It's a museum of some sort. It's very elegant, almost annoyingly so, because I am a little bit an adversary of excessive, comfort and so on. But this is probably my problem. Look at the bathroom, look at those towels, perfectly, waiting there for the user. And this is actually not the most opulent bathroom I have seen now. It's not. But it's, on the other hand, it's not the most modest either. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't mind living here in a very egotistical way. It's probably present, but if I compare what I see here with what I saw at Villa Mairea by Alvaro Alto and Alto, I prefer what the Altos did. This is still a little bit predictable and cold and artificious, although he is a good architect. Now here again, it's the luxury of the house in dialogue with the true beauty of the landscape. At night, there are these displays on these, panels of glass here. Um, it's something sad about it because, but I understand. I even in my own life, I went through something like this. There is a lover of art here. There is someone who wants to communicate with the world through art, not forgetting that etymologically art means bridge and by extension God. So it's about communication. But with whom is he communicating, or with whom are they communicating? Because this building is all alone in a beautiful landscape, but other trees sensitive to this display of art at night on the facades of the building. I don't know. I admire and respect and love trees, but I don't know if the trees are aware of this effort on the side of the clients. You see, it's projected from here, huge on the facade of the building, but there is no one around to actually see this beauty. And I imagine, yes, it is beauty. It is a beautiful building with that projection at night. This is the model. I somehow like the character of the tactility of the pedestal of the base more. I like his drawings though. I think even if he didn't build anything, his drawings show considerable graphic aptitude and talent. But let's give to the king what belongs to the king. Is the landscape. It's magnificent. It's truly beautiful. Again, I don't know if they used a gardener of genius or they landscaped the. It's very beautiful. I feel like looking at this picture for hours and not getting tired. And what's beautiful even more is that you don't see any anthropos, any human being. It's just the beauty of nature. But it seems to be I don't know. It's possible there was here some gardening taking place, some landscaping, discreet but poetical, romantic. Sees drawings for the house during the construction. A lot of steel used there for, it's a contemporary building. And now we look at something else, and we end this short introduction because it's no more than that, just an introduction into the work of Allied Works. This is a very interesting work because it's not literally architecture as we know of. It's not a functional building per se. Its function is rather metaphorical and artistic, but I think it's very impressive. So the Mary Hill Overlook is an interpretive site installation that lies on a bluff above the Columbia River within a high desert landscape of sage, basalt outcroppings, and native grasses. The Overlook is Allied Works' first completed sittings project or sightings project. I don't know very well. Sightings perhaps should be read. One of a series of conceptual site-specific proposals that interpret and respond to the diverse landscapes of the Pacific Northwest. And this is what they did, and I like these works very much. And I wish other similar works follow, because they are emptied of the supremacy of the human function, and they are, relics of an imaginative intervention. Now, of course, from the point of view of sustainability, this is a little bit perverse or vicious because it's done with concrete, all this work, and I'm not sure we need more concrete. But in this landscape, this intervention, this human intervention, this installation is impressive through its abstractness, and somehow you feel it's an attempt, mysterious as it is, towards some kind of a dialogue with the infinite. We don't build like the Egyptians built, but we could build in this way. And this was not done by a pharaoh for a pharaoh. It was built by almost like people like you and me in an impressive landscape. But I think it's a good work. It's the work of a sculptor in a way, but it shows again that this architect was and is an artist as well. It is amazing in a way that a pragmatic society like North America or the United States has finds resources also for this kind of work, which is, not ideologically charged and is not destined for, being consumed. And I like the level of abstraction. It's a powerful work because it is abstract. It's not on Mars, it's not on the moon, it's on Earth. By an architect born on February the 8th, I think 1956. Allied Works. Even in black and white, they are impressive. And some drawings, preliminary drawings. I think he has, in the field of graphic art, a distinct personality. With a few lines, he's able to say a lot in abstract terms. So his drawings, even this sketch, I think it shows a powerful artistic disposition, but expressed in austere terms. The model. I like these kind of constructions, or call them installations, without a specific function, certainly not in the field of what we usually understand by function.